This thing is just, it's a lot of fun, even though it's not the most powerful model. This thing is just unbelievable. Hello everyone, welcome back to Electrified Outdoors. Most of you probably think this is primarily a Rivian channel, and most of my content is about Rivian. But why I originally created this channel was to educate the public about electric vehicles, all the benefits that electric vehicles have, and all the different products that are out there in the marketplace. So with that said, today we're going to take a look at the Chevy Silverado EV work truck. This is a truck that has 450 miles of all-electric range. This is pretty much the most range you can get out of any electric vehicle, much less a full-size pickup truck, other than like something like a Lucid, which I think they're like at or a little bit over 500 miles of range. But that's not a full-size truck. That is a sedan. Now, I want to talk a little bit about GM's history and why I feel this vehicle is so important. Remember, I have chapters down below this video, so if you don't want to hear this and you just want to get right to the Silverado EV, go ahead and use the chapters down below to do that. But this truck is really important. This is not the first full-size electric pickup truck. We have the Ford F-150 Lightning, the Hummer, if you count that. That's kind of a little over the top, though. That's not really a truck, in my opinion. Then you have like the midsize, which is like a Rivian, but this is not only a full-size EV all-electric pickup truck, but it has a 450-mile range. Now, the Rivian is a midsize pickup, and with the Max Pack, you can get somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 miles, maybe a little bit over that. I think 410 or 420 is the official figure for that one, for the dual motor. But this is a full-size pickup truck. This thing is long. It's about 1.5 feet longer than the Rivian, and it's got a huge pickup bed, a nice size frunk in the front, which you'll see in a minute. So this is a very important vehicle, not only for GM, but for the electric vehicle industry. This is a huge battery, so it's over 200 kilowatt hours in this battery, but it can charge using 800-volt charging infrastructure, which means that it can charge faster. And because it's such a large pack, it can charge faster for longer. So this truck will do up to 350 kilowatts fast charging. Now, there are other creators out there on YouTube that have done fast charging reviews. I think Tom Maloney did a review with State of Charge as his YouTube channel, and he talks about the charging curve and everything. So I'll put a link down in the description to his video if you're interested in the DC fast charging performance of this Silverado. But this truck is huge, and it's going to fit the bill for a lot of people, and namely towing, because we all know that when you tow with an electric truck, your range is cut at least in half, sometimes by as much as 2/3. So having 450 miles of range is critical if you're going to tow. Even though you may not use that range in your daily activities, when you tow, that extra range really, really is important. So what we're going to do is go walk around the truck, see what it's all about. Then we're going to take it for a ride and see how it performs. But before we do that, if you're new here, go ahead and click subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you get notified anytime we add new content. And also, hit that thumbs up. It helps others find our content easier on YouTube. So let's get started. So here we are in the front of it. And as you can see, there's no real grille opening. So this is the first dead giveaway that this is an electric truck. And there's also not a lot of bells and whistles on this one. Again, this is the work truck, but I think it looks very, very, very nice. And if you don't need a lot of bells and whistles in a truck, I think this really is an excellent value. This truck has a 450-mile range. So what does that mean? That means that if you're going to tow with it, typically your towing range is about half of your normal range. So if you're going to tow with it, you can expect to get around 200 miles, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on what you're towing. And here we have the soft tonneau cover on this truck. This is not my truck. This is actually an enterprise rental. And it does have the running boards. It has 18-inch alloy wheels. And you could really call this Chevy Avalanche 2.0 because it looks a lot like an Avalanche. I'll put a picture of an Avalanche up on the screen for you so you can kind of see, but it's a very attractive truck. And believe it or not, it's a Chevy, but it still gets a lot of looks. There's not a whole lot of these out there right now. And when we look at the front here, and you'll have to excuse me, there's a little bit of wind. We have a traditional key fob here. So if I tap this twice, it's gonna pop the hood. Now with the work truck, which is what we're looking at right now, it does not auto open and close. It pops, and then you have to manually open it. But you can see it's a nice big front trunk. Not quite as big as the Gen 1 Rivian. I think it's almost exactly the same. I think 10.8 cubic feet is what we're looking at. One thing it does have that the Rivian does not have is it has a power outlet here. And not really a whole lot to do under here. This is an electric truck, so all we have is windshield washer fluid. There's really nothing else. There is access to be able to jump start the 12-volt battery. And then when we close this, we just pull it down and then it'll latch itself. Going around here to the back, we have the charge port. No fancy motorized charging port openers and closers, just a spring-loaded mechanism there. You push to close, push to open, and then open it. J1772, and when you pull this off, you have a CCS1 for fast charging. And we go around here to the back of the truck. We can see that, well, let's see if it'll let us open it. No? Soft open. So the work truck does have a soft open. And we have a soft tonneau cover on here. I'm not going to take that off right at the moment, but we can see that there's plugs back here. And not only are there plugs, but you also have something that a lot of the other vehicles don't. You have a 30 amp plug back there. And this does not have the midgate. So what you get, I believe, is a 6-foot bed there. Fairly easy to close the tailgate. You have your hitch back here for towing. And then up here is your connection for your trailer. It has all the typical work truck stuff. Steps there. It makes it really easy to get in and out of the bed. And then of course your runners make it easy to get in and out of the truck because this does not have the air suspension. On the top model, the RST, you're going to have an air suspension, and that can put the truck into an entry and exit ride height where you won't necessarily need the running boards so much. But on the work truck, you don't have that. So it's nice to have those standard. The wheels are really nice, I mean, for a work truck. You can see what it has in there. And when we open it, we have a very, very basic interior, but it's actually pretty nice. The seats are like a leather or leatherette material. And the dash is kind of it's not a hard touch plastic, it's kind of a soft touch. This is kind of more of a more hard touch plastic on the door. This is nice and soft. Lots of cup holders. So 2 cup holders back here, 2 cup holders here. And if you look down in here, this is where you're going to have your USB-C ports. And you also have a spot right here where you can sit a phone. And then you have a ton of space down there underneath of that as well. Then you open this up, you have some space in there. You have these grab handles, make it easy to get in and out. Being the work truck, it does not have the sunroof or the panoramic glass roof. We do have some basic controls up here, your OnStar, your SOS, your hazards, and so on. We have 2 screens. I believe the primary screen here is an 11-inch screen, and then you have the driver's information screen over there. And then your climate control, which will make a lot of folks happy, is all push buttons and knobs. Okay. Still have power windows, power locks. Decent sized glove box. You have these little slots on the side there. And you have a lot of storage down here in the doors. This kind of stuff is really important on a work truck. When we go into the back of the truck here, this is where, I mean, I'm really impressed. So we have vents back here. We have 2 USB-C ports back here. We also have a power outlet back here. Lots of seating room. Lots of leg room. And again, in the door, we have a lot of storage. And these seats will fold up. I'm not going to show that here in this video, but we also have these big grab handles again to make it easier for folks to get in and out. GM really thought about folks that may not necessarily be able to jump up in this truck very easily. So you have the running boards to climb up, and then you have the handle to help you. Now here on the inside of the vehicle, we can see that I have a power steering message there. It drives fine, so I'm not sure what that is. But we have our main display here. Now, don't get excited because this is the work truck, and only the work truck has Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. The LT and the RST do not have Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, folks. I'm sorry to say. I think it's a huge mistake not to include that by GM. I don't like the fact that Tesla doesn't have it, or Rivian, and now GM is saying they don't want to do it. And just using it for the past couple days that I've been using it, I realize how much I actually miss the Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. But I digress. So when we come in here, the first screen we're on here is actually the charging screen. And it tells us very easy to understand language here, the next charge, and we can see, look at that range, folks. 85% state of charge, and we have a predicted range of 391 miles. That's at 85%, not 100%. And this is a big truck. If we go into our settings here, we can do a lot of stuff in here. Like, for example, we can set our home charging location if we want to do scheduled charging. We can set our notifications, fast charging prep. And I like how it says this here. I don't know who did this, but it's kind of funny. Just like an athlete, your battery needs a warm-up to perform its best. In the same way, this feature gives your vehicle a head start for fast charging. So it looks like you can manually precondition the battery for fast charging, which is pretty cool. Preconditioning temperature. So this is for preconditioning the cabin. And you can see right now we have it set at 72. And we can set preferred charging times as well. Pretty good amount of features in here for charging. And we have charge assist. Okay, this is used in conjunction with the Chevy app. And then we also have scheduled charging as well. And if we go down to the vehicle, again, this is the work truck, so we're not going to have a ton of features in here. This is going to be the truck in its most basic form. We have our dome lights, power window lockout. All those are self-explanatory. Auto high beams, park assist, power base. This allows you to share the battery's energy when the vehicle is off. Power base is going to be your power outlets in the bed and in the front there. Those are not on all the time. You have to turn those on. And then there's a timer where it will automatically turn off. And then, of course, you can set a range reserve so that you can still drive the truck. You don't ever want to really run the truck down to dead using the outlets. 20% is a good recommendation for that, in my opinion. And if we tap down here, we have more controls, doors and windows, lights, okay. This in drive and park is where you're going to turn on your one pedal driving if you like one pedal driving. This is basically regen. When I picked this truck up, it was off, and it was very much like a traditional truck. You had the drift when you let off the brake pedal, and you did not really have any, it was very, very minimal regen when you let off the accelerator. I think it was like 20, it was less than 25 kilowatt, which is not a lot for a big truck like this. You have on, which is your standard setting, and then you have high. This is the one that I like the most, is the high setting. Of course, you can turn traction control on or off, and then you also have a speed limiter as well. And then you have aux switches in here. Again, this is very, very basic here. You have your phone. You can pair your phones. You do have Google Maps. Unfortunately, this truck does not have a data connection, so we're not really going to be able to demonstrate that. But built in, you have the Google Maps, but you don't really need that because, again, here in the work truck, you do have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Next, we have music, and we have several different options here. And down here is where we have basically our full menu screen, and we can look at the vehicle status. And in here, we have this really cool graphic that we can kind of move around. And it's funny because it's actually showing the RST, and we're in the work truck, but we can view the tire pressure. Okay. Recommended PSI in this truck, the work truck, is 61 PSI cold. Energy info. And this is where we're going to be able to see our efficiency. You can see that our average is 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour. That is impressive, folks, for a truck this size. Okay. And then we can look at our energy usage since we last charged the vehicle. It'll tell us where the power went. And then we do have a trip meter as well. And when we go in here, we can see that for the last 4,000 miles or so, we've averaged 1.9 miles per kilowatt hour. So I'm not really too sure about that. Now also on this image of the truck, and this should be the same on the RST and the LT models as well. If we click on one of these plus signs, it's going to show us some things. Like, for example, it shows us the tire pressure. And if we tap here, we can see the efficiency, the average efficiency. And if we tap here, we can see the energy usage. And then we can also tap this, and it will actually take us to that area of the menu. So it's pretty cool that it's a quick way to access. And that's the rear tire pressure. This is probably going to be tire pressure again. And so you may have some additional options on the upper level trims, but pretty cool there. And of course we have Google Assistant here. This is an Android-based system. We do have the Play Store. Now again, we don't have a data connection, so we're not going to be able to view or download any apps. But this is all Android-based. We have our cameras, our climate. We do have a trailering section. So let's see if I go into the trailering section, what we get. So here in the trailering section, we can set the gain for our trailer brakes. So it does have an integrated trailer brake controller, even on the work truck. And then we can do a test. Okay. So this is to test your trailer lights. Make sure they're working. That's always a good idea to do before you set out on a trip with your trailer. And then this is something that's really cool that I think every vehicle that has a towing package should have. It's a checklist. It's a safety checklist. So you have, is your hitch securely mounted? Is your trailer connected to the hitch and locked? Is your electrical connector plugged in? Are your lights working? Are your safety chains in place? Do you have a jack and tires, and are they stowed properly? Wheel chocks removed, mirrors adjusted, and brake gain adjusted. So GM really thought this out, and they even gave you a checklist to make sure you're as safe as possible when you're towing with the Silverado EV. And then if we scroll over, we do have the capability for a Wi-Fi hotspot, audio maps, the My Chevrolet app, news, and then of course we have settings. And this is just going to be all the settings for the vehicle, like connections, date and time, and so on and so forth. So you can see that we've got some pretty good features here. And then of course you can also update the vehicle as well. It does have the capability to do some over-the-air software updates. The one thing I will say that I'm not really too impressed with, like these vents feel a pretty decent quality, but the vents here on both the far left and the far right on the passenger side, these feel really cheap, and I feel like these are going to break at some point. And to me, they look exactly the same on the RST model, except that on the RST model, this black plastic piece here is actually a color accent. But, you know, some of these plastics are not going to last for a very long time. But I think for the most part, overall, the truck is really has a quality feel to it. Now, if you're used to something like a Rivian, you're not going to be too impressed with this truck because it is not a luxury truck. This is built to do work. It's built to be a tool, although it does ride extremely comfortably. So if we look over here on our stalks, we have some controls. We have controls for the wipers on the back. This controls the sensitivity here, the intermittent wipers. Then we can activate the windshield washer. And of course, this is going to turn our high beams on and off. The vehicle does have automatic high beams, though I found that they haven't really worked on the back roads that I've driven it on over the past couple of days. The shifter is very similar to other vehicles. The one thing that's kind of weird, and I'll put the brake on here, but the one thing that's kind of weird is you have to pull it towards you and then down, and then to get it back, if you want to go into reverse, you have to pull it towards you and up. And that's kind of interesting. Other manufacturers don't do that. You just push down on the stalk. And then, of course, you push on the end here for park. So there's really not a whole lot to see here in the work truck, folks. But it does what it's designed to do, and it does it very well. The last thing here is just the steering wheel controls. You can see that we have several different controls on the steering wheel for phone calls, for voice assistant, for music. And then we also have basic cruise control here. It is adaptive. We can set the gap, how much of a gap we want to keep. Look like there's 3 settings. And then we can resume and set using this switch here. On the back of the steering wheel, there are up and down buttons on both sides. This control on the left side will skip forward or backwards for your audio. And then the up and down buttons on the right side will adjust your volume. And the stereo in this truck is surprisingly good for this being the base stripped down work truck model. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take it for a drive and see how it performs on the road. All right, so I've got my hint water here and I've got some coffee and we're ready to go. Just gonna pull back on this down here, put it in drive. It kind of makes a sound like a jet plane when it's either in drive or reverse. It's kind of funny sounding. But one thing you'll notice as soon as you jump into the Silverado EV is that this is a large truck. This is a full-size truck, and it feels like a full-size truck. But one of the things is this truck is very large. So it's a full-size pickup. But the work truck here rides really nice. It's a very smooth ride, very comfortable. I mean, obviously it's not going to handle like a Rivian or something like that, but it handles surprisingly well for a full-size pickup that has, you know, the smaller wheels and tires with larger sidewall and things like that. It handles really well. And you'll see in a minute, I'm going to try to do a 0 to 60. But this truck, unlike the Rivian, this truck is kind of slow off the line, I feel. It feels like that to me. Now, being the work truck, this only has 500, I believe it's 510 horsepower. But it's kind of slow off the line. However, when you're moving, it has a pretty decent amount of power for passing. So it handles these turns pretty well. I'm doing about 35. These are some pretty sharp turns. A lot of good regen braking. So remember, I have it in the high regen mode, or the one pedal drive high setting. And that setting gives you a really good amount of regen. It's what I'm used to. It's comparable to the high in the Rivian, and it's not quite like Tesla's regen, but they have a strong amount of regen as well. So I'm going to make a left here. The work truck does not have the four-wheel steering. So the RST model that has the four-wheel steer is going to handle a lot better than this work truck. But this is not, it's not horrible. It is a little bit of a challenge backing into like parking spots and things like that. It's a much larger truck, so it's not quite as easy to park as something that's smaller like the Rivian. That's a little bit easier to park than this is. But if you buy a truck like this, you're kind of sacrificing that parking capability for, you know, more towing, more payload capacity and things of that nature. So I'm not sure a lot of full-size truck buyers are going to be too overly concerned about the parking situation. Strong regen, so I can get it up to 90 kilowatts of regen, slowing down right there. So pretty decent amount of power. Did not look like the full output, but you can see if you watch the driver's display, you can see that it kind of ramps the power up. And I actually like that for two reasons. For one, it makes it seem more like an ICE, how an ICE would perform. And a lot of your truck buyers that are coming from a gas truck or a diesel truck might like that better, might like it to perform that way better. The other thing it's going to do is it's not going to be hard on your drivetrain. And while Tesla and Rivian, they both, when you stab that accelerator, they really perform. That's also hard on like the axles and things like that. So yes, they can make them beefier, but still, it's not good to just have that instant power sometimes. You know, the weakest link is going to fail, and the weakest link in a drivetrain of an EV is definitely the half shaft. So keep that in mind, but it is a blast when you step on it and it has all that power instantaneously. This truck has automatic dual zone climate control, which is impressive for the work truck. The truck feels very smooth as well. It feels like you have a lot of power when you're on the accelerator, but this thing feels like it has good power. And if I'm being totally honest, folks, I kind of like this thing. The interior bits are not as nice as my Rivian, but this thing is very comfortable to drive. The motor noise is not as strong as the Rivian, but you can hear it enough to where if you're into EVs like me, you like it. It feels like I can feel the rear drive unit disengaging and re-engaging under certain scenarios. I couldn't feel that in the Rivian dual motor, but I can feel that here in the Silverado EV. So this is not going to be race car power, but I mean, it's pretty good for an 8,500 pound truck, folks. Come on. How much power do you really want or need? Even up a hill. I'd be careful I don't spill my coffee. I mean, it kind of almost feels like a V8 truck in some ways. It's kind of weird. GM really tuned the regen well also, because I'm not stepping on the brake pedal at all. I mean, yeah, this is not a slow truck, folks. And when you come down to a stop with the one pedal drive on, it does bring the truck completely to a stop and it holds it there. So we'll see how this thing goes. Yeah, it's got a pretty decent amount of power. I was able to keep up with this guy that was going past, and it's 50 or 55 on this road. So I don't know, folks. Do you really need 750 horsepower? I mean, this thing is pretty fast, and it only has about 510. And in the high regen setting, when you accelerate hard like that, it's very well controlled. Bringing it down with a regen is totally possible. Unless, of course, something's right in front of you, then you're going to need to use the brakes. Let's see. It stops very fast. Yep, it stops very fast. And with this setup, I don't know that you really want any more power. The traction might really be an issue then. But as you can see, it's raining a little bit, and the truck doesn't appear to be losing any traction when I step on it hard. So the traction control is working extremely well. I don't even know that it's operating. Or maybe GM just has it tuned in such a way that the power comes on gradually enough to where it's not inducing a lot of wheel spin. Now, if I'm coming all the way down, let's see what it gives me. 96 kilowatt is what it got up to there. So that's a decent amount of regen. I was able to slow the truck very, very fast. I'm impressed by this truck, folks. I think GM has really done a stellar job with this thing. I think the work truck or the LT will be probably a really good fit for the majority of buyers. If you want every last ounce of performance and you want that really, really sporty appearance, the RST is the way to go there with, I believe it's 750 horsepower in the RST trim if you enable the wide open watts mode. I think for the majority of buyers, this or the LT trim are gonna be what most of them go for. If you want every last ounce of performance and you want a really sporty looking truck, then I think the RST is gonna be the one you're gonna wanna go for. Really, really good regen here. And the majority of the time, this is just a really comfortable ride. It rides like a luxury vehicle. Of course, it doesn't have any of the luxury feelings inside, but it rides so well. And in the future, I'm probably going to test out the RST to see how that performs in comparison to this. The four-wheel steering and the interior bits should be a little more upscale. And the ride is, I believe, more tunable in the RST. I think you've got different settings and things of that nature. Of course, you're going to have a larger display, but we'll see that in a later video. But this truck is just so enjoyable to drive. So what do you guys think of this Silverado EV work truck? Would you buy one? Are you thinking about buying one with the 450-mile range? Let us know down in the comments section. As always, folks, remember to like and then hit that subscribe button. And if you turn on all notifications, you'll never miss out on any of our upcoming content. As always, remember to hug the people you love every chance you get, and we'll see you next time.